The Microsoft Power Platform and Dynamics 365 Wave 1 releases were recently dropped just a few weeks ago. And on today's show, we're going to have a look at what those features are, what those benefits are. We're live, it's the 22nd of April, and this is the Digital Lounge. Joining me today are Ollie Sinclair and Adam Throstle from Crimson's consulting team. Afternoon, gents. How you both doing?
Very good, very good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. Not too bad. It's still raining, though. I wish it had stopped raining. Can you do anything about that? Yeah. So we are talking today about the recent Wave 1 release. Just to recap, there are 2 Wave releases a year. It's a phased rollout of those features. We've sort of got into the stride of how Microsoft likes to work these days, but it's hard to keep up. So, Ollie, if I can get to you first of all, I suppose. I understand there's a new look and feel. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? And perhaps Adam, you can add to that afterwards. That'd be great.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so there is there's been a lot of work recently in terms of the model driven app, especially within sort of Dynamics 365 and the Power Platform, and they're really trying to move towards a new UI and a new sort of framework of that UI. So there is, if for the guys, the eagle eyes that are using the platform will see that there's a little toggle that says, "Look at the new UI" or "Enable the new UI." That has some slight changes as a look and feel, as a little bit less white space real estate, and it's a little bit more boxed together. And some of the way in which the the views are actually sort of displayed has a bit of a difference. But that's really one of the major elements that we've seen. And because of that, there's a little bit of an overhaul of the old school themings. So the theming part in which you guys used to have access to, we can still do it, but it's done in a slightly different way. Adam, you've got a little bit more info on this one.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say that the theming change caught us a little bit by surprise. We spend a fair amount of time looking at the release documents, but we also spend a fair amount of time looking at the deprecation documents. So when a feature is going to be removed, we look at those documents and we try and keep up to speed. But the theming one just appeared on a blog article somewhere that said, "Oh, now that theming is no longer supported, we'll do it in this new way." So it did catch us by a little bit by surprise. But certainly some of the features and that toggle switch that you mentioned of try the new look and feel with Wave 1, of course, that's now on by default, and so everybody will see that when they go in, unless it's been manually switched off. But certainly some of the things around the infinite scrolling have brought in new challenges. I think we're all used to using web applications that have pages of data, and now this infinite scrolling, it's a very different experience.
And how do you think customers are finding it at the moment with the new look and feel?
Because it is quite a subtle change, and arguably they still have that toggle up the top. If all of a sudden they've got, say, PCF controls or some of those elements which potentially rely on some of the older way of look and feel, they do have the option. But arguably, there's not a huge amount in it in terms of from an end user perspective. It is just getting used to those things, like Adam said, around the infinite scrolling on your views. One interesting thing that I've been playing around with was now we are into the new look and feel. You can actually tweak the URL that you're going to and actually have a default dark mode, which for the developers out there that sit and have dark mode on some of their applications, it's been ages since we've been asking for this, and we've actually finally got it. But I have been playing around with it, and there are some gotchas in terms of enabling that dark mode, but it's there by default, which is it's always good to see.
Excellent. Well, Let's move on to some of the new features then. So, what exciting things are you seeing within the Power Platform, Adam?
I mean, one of the things that we've been asking for a long time is around virus scanning or virus checking, and it's something that we natively get when we upload files into SharePoint or OneDrive. We've got the M365 Security Center, but with Dynamics or Dynamics CRM as it used to be called, you didn't have that. So you were uploading an attachment, and ultimately that attachment would be stored in the database, but it didn't have any virus checking. So one of the features that was announced as part of this wave, and I think when I last read the document, it was due for preview in June. Actually, it was announcing virus checking for files uploaded into Dataverse, which is perfect. And, we have customers that are asking for this on a daily basis. And it's something that we've been asking for a very long time.
Okay. And I think it's going to help a lot with really just nailing down some of those security concerns that that people have using the new technology of the Power Platform and some of those capabilities. It's one of those things. I feel like we're just sort of playing catch up a little bit, but we're there now. Certainly in our verticals, the housing associations certainly deal with a lot of documentation, and certainly so do higher education. So in the sort of the admission side, when they are loading up all sorts of evidence around applying for university places, there's a lot of documents and files that start flying around. I think it's nice that we've now able to, at a central point, be able to have that virus checking capability. So it should be really good.
Okay, an interesting new feature. And Power Pages, I know that's evolving quite quickly. And Ollie, you're seeing something around virtual tables there.
Yeah, we are. This is a real nice one. I think this is really good. So just to set the scene, obviously within the Power Platform, the component that we have to create portals and website type elements where customers can directly interact with the Power Platform is Power Pages. And really, previous to this release, we've arguably had to rely on having the data in which is surfaced into the Power Platform being Dataverse. Now, we all know that, don't get me wrong, if you speak to me and Adam, we love the Dataverse. We think a lot of stuff should be in there. But in the real world, universities, higher education people, or a lot of organizations have data in different places. And actually, what they've done now is through not a new technology set within the Power Platform, but they've enhanced this set called virtual tables. Virtual tables allows you to effectively have a data source that sits outside of Dataverse and can be surfaced into Power Pages. So you don't have to sort of go through the Dataverse side to actually get all of your data, potentially replicated in Dataverse to then surface that up to the portal. You can actually have that surface from your actual data source. So this is really, really brilliant, and it's an advancement that is, virtual tables have been around for a while. They're constantly improving that functionality. They're now opening this up to Power Pages, so you could arguably have through a SQL table or through SharePoint at the moment, but other connectors I'm sure will come along. You create those virtual tables and reference those within Power Pages, which means you're not subservient to having to have Dataverse there front and center. Don't get me wrong, from a security perspective, it does theoretically go through Dataverse, but your data would sit on arguably where you'd want to sit, which is its actual data source, and you can surface that for the customer. So really, really good announcement, and I think a lot of people will utilize this functionality going forward.
It just strikes me Power Pages is really starting to get its stride now. I mean, it's not been around all that long, but what do you think the response has been from customers so far?
I think it has. I think it's funny, Adam. I'd say the vast majority of our projects and the engagements we have with our customers, there's always an element of Power Pages in there now. So it really has become one of those mature components within the Power Platform. And ADX Studio, which it used to be called before it had the label change, has been around for quite a while. But you're right, this new venture into the low code, no code space with the solution designer and the web page designer opening up and be able to edit the HTML straight away. Some of those really cool features that are coming into Power Platform this, virtual tables is just another one of those to add on to that feature rich capability. So yeah, I think customers are really going to like it.
Fantastic. So we've talked about Power Pages, we've talked about the virus checking announcement. Is there anything else, Adam?
There was just one that we wanted to mention, and Ollie's smiling already because he knows that I wanted to mention this. But as developers and as solution providers, we have a strategy of managing customizations, and generally that involves managed customizations in production. But actually, a preview feature came out that was called block unmanaged customizations. So we both thinking, oh, this is brilliant. This will stop people customizing things directly in production. It'll be, kind of the answer to what we've been looking for. But actually, the truth wasn't quite that simple. So we actually tried this. We tried this in a development environment and switched it on. And actually, it broke a fair few things. It broke our duplicate detection rules. It broke some of the SLAs that we had configured, and actually it unpublished them. And certainly when we looked at the duplicate detection rules, it's to all intents and purposes they look correct. But when trying to publish, we were then getting an error message saying this environment is blocked for unmanaged customizations. So it was a bit of a gotcha. These things are all preview features, so that's exactly why we don't turn them on in production. This is why we test them. But it was just that interesting swap between our initial, oh yeah, this is brilliant.
Exciting.
Oh, okay, we perhaps better test this a little bit more.
And it's a really funny one because Microsoft, they have been going around, the Power Platform itself, let's not forget this is a low-code, no-code tool, and there's a lot of organizations out there wanting to utilize this as their digital platform for simple productivity, small productivity. So they have really tried as much as they can to get a lot of governance into the platform, hence things like managed environments, this new feature of unmanaged blocking unmanaged customizations. The intention is right, but I think some of these are slightly less mature in terms of actually looking at this in a real life scenario. So things like duplicate detection rules is a really good shout, Adam. There's a couple of things that actually sit, although they're not an unmanaged customizations as we would call them as unmanaged customizations, according to the environment when you're changing these, effectively is on the unmanaged customization sort of area. So it's funny how in a utopian world this is perfect, but actually in reality there's a little bit more thinking that I think Microsoft need to do with some of these things.
Okay, so we've covered three areas there, three additions to the platform. What have you seen that's been taken away, been removed, been replaced? Ollie, if I could come to you first on that.
Yeah, so April, so pretty much now, the old school sort of Dynamics 365 for phones and tablets, they are sort of effectively being decommissioned. It shouldn't be a problem because arguably that has been around for a number of wave releases, a number of years, in fact, is the new way in terms of now Dynamics 365, we all know as a part of the Power Platform, and arguably you would go into the Power Platform mobile app experience and be able to select from your applications to load through the Power Platform application. Some of these old school legacy Dynamics 365 specifically for phones. So if you go onto the marketplace and download one of those things, they're probably not there anymore. But that's how we used to do it, before the Power Platform mobile experience was really mature. Unfortunately, those things are not there anymore. There's a couple of caveats to that. Some of the elements around the Dynamics 365 for field service mobile app, which is a bit of a dedicated app that's got a lot more functionality, is still there. But your traditional Dynamics 365 for mobile and for phone and tablets is being decommissioned. My opinion is that's probably a really good thing. We're quite away from the old school way of looking at mobility in terms of applications, and we are into the Power Platform world. So if you were to create a custom app, for example, you would never have been able to use the the old D365 mobiles anyway, you would have been going through that through the Power Platform application experience anyway. So it's one to note. If you guys are, still using those, you're probably not going to be able to anymore. But it's probably giving you a bit of a kick to get into the right direction anyway.
And are you getting any feedback from customers at the moment on that, Adam, or any other areas that you've noticed?
Not specifically around the mobile apps functionality. I think that there has been a couple of announcements around some new offline capability, certainly native offline for Canvas apps, but also some additional capability around Power Automate. For a long time now, there have been, I think there's either 3 or 4 connectors that we would use to connect to Dynamics or Dataverse. There's an old Dynamics one that's been deprecated for a long time. There's a Dataverse one and there's a new Dataverse one, distinguishable only by one is grey and one is green when you're building. But actually, some of that functionality that existed previously still isn't quite in the new one yet. And what we're aiming towards is having one connector, because that's perfect. That we have one connector where we can connect into Dataverse and do all of our data pulls or data imports.
Okay, great stuff. Well, gosh, how many times have we talked about Copilot on shows? Ollie's been on many of those shows, and we've talked about it. We've touched on it a few times now, but let's sort of dig into this a little bit more in relation to our customers. So, Copilot AI, are our customers using it more now? What's the latest situation there? And Ollie, if I can go to you on that, please.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so hey, look, this is moving at a hell of a pace, and there's a lot of features and functionalities pretty much being released weekly that we find about and we learn about, and also the platform is changing. M365 Copilot, Dynamics 365 Copilots of all sorts of flavors. So arguably, I think our mature customers, the ones that are in a good operating state for digital transformation, are really looking at this and trying to understand how they're going to utilize it going forward. I believe we're still in the proof of concept phase, and I think there is some trepidation around the prerequisites to rolling out good Copilot use, which is around, or how structured is our data, how secure is our data, and are our policies up to the scrutiny in terms of responsible AI, and being able to make sure that this is governed correctly. So I think some sensible customers are trialing this, doing proof of concepts, and really stretching the boundaries of what, for example, Microsoft may sort of share in terms of, this is how you can use Copilot, but in the real world, that arguably there's a bit of a difference between that. And I think our the smart customers out there are really looking at this and making sure that there are plans in place to enable this going forward. Let's not forget, that's just the generative AI and Copilot stuff. AI in general is in and embedded in a lot of the systems that we work with. So from an AI perspective, I think there is a lot of adoption going forward, and there's a lot of utilization of that already. But in that generative space, the Copilot space, we're still finding that yes, we've spun up Copilots, we've spun up proof of concepts for our customers, and they are in the sort of the process of making sure that the business value is there, but also the fundamentals are there to actually enable that Copilot for good use. So we're getting there. There's a lot to happen, and in this next 6 months will really be quite critical for organizations to really make sure that they have a good strategy and a good governance policy to sit on top of their generative AI initiatives that they're looking to do.
Fantastic. And of course, last week we were on a separate podcast talking about AI, specifically into social housing, but the principles are still the same about getting your data in good order, and as you say, that those foundations. For any listeners out there that are interested in that, we do have some workshops that can help with that readiness and just that general awareness within the business. So do get in contact with us at crimson.co.uk, and we can certainly point you in the right direction with that. Just sticking one more question on the topic of AI, Ollie. Can you give us any tips around prompts, using prompts with AI? Just for those that are tinkering with that at the moment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think one of the really interesting things that's coming out, very specific to the Wave release, actually, we've got within the Power Platform itself, you've got what's effective, the sort of the AI space, which you've got two. You've got co-pilots, and you've got what used to be called virtual agents. So you've got Copilot Studio, which can create your wonderful chatbots and virtual agents to be able to surface that generative AI. But you've also got what's known as AI Builder. And AI Builder comes with, the way in which you're actually embedding AI into the system, whether that's document processing, processing image, or texts, or acting on tabular data. They've actually increased that capability to now building generative AI capabilities through prompts. So prompts are really, really useful in terms of how you can be the middleman between your end user interacting with a large language model like ChatGPT, and actually being able to sort of prompt, as a data analyst, what I want is my response made in this sort of way. So when a question comes in, when data comes in, it goes through that prompt cycle before you push out and actually get the answer back from your large language model or your GPT element. So they've got some good ones around summarizing texts, drafting replies, classifying text, and extracting texts. But the really cool thing is that they've got custom prompts. So you can actually go ahead and industry specific or scenario specific, you can create custom prompts that allow you to define exactly what you want from a GPT response, so that it can be really, really useful. April Dunham is an MVP. She's got a YouTube video out there around custom prompts, and this scenario is effectively being able to consume and read a resume based off some a job sort of job characteristics, and actually using GPT to summarize that resume against the characteristics of that job to work out if that person would be good for hiring. So you can see how, if you're creating those prompts, you can then utilize them in different areas. So it may be that if that information comes in, you can build a Power Automate using that custom prompt to be able to come to some sort of decision. You could still utilize that same prompt in an app, or you could use that same prompt, say, for example, classifying a university student, whether they have the eligibility to go for a specific course, and push that through the portal. So these custom prompts, you build it once, and you're then able to then utilize AI in multiple different areas using the Power Platform. So really exciting about that. And again, the demonstrations that we've seen are, there is no code. This is a no code solution to being able to utilize the power of generative AI within your applications.
But it is very much a skill in itself, is getting the right prompt, and you've only got to do a quick internet search of where people haven't quite got the right prompts, and let's not name any examples on here, but quick internet search will bring them up pretty quickly. But you can see what can happen very quickly if you don't put the right prompts in, and we're all used to interacting with a computer with a mouse and a keyboard. But now we've got this whole interface of asking a question and getting an answer, and understanding how to ask the right question is actually, it is a skill in itself. You can ask AI the same question written 5 different times, and you'll get 5 different answers. So understanding that context and understanding the circumstances, as Ollie was describing, is so crucial in making sure that you get the right answer.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, Adam, and I think it's a skill set we're all going to have to learn, whichever role we might have in an organization. So I think that the big message there is get involved, to start experimenting. And what's the quote? AI won't. Oh, what was it now? It's something about AI won't steal your job, but people using AI may well. And I think there's some truth in that. Some truth in that. Okay, we're going to have to wrap up, but I have got one more question for you, Adam. Licensing, pricing, it's always a very complicated topic. And we do try to keep up with changes from Microsoft. Have you seen any changes with recent announcements that customers should be aware of?
Yes, I mean, certainly keeping up with the announcements and quite how licenses work over the past few years has been a challenge. I think we've all seen the change around API usage and throttling and things like that. But this one hopefully is a fairly simple update, and it's actually only a couple of weeks since this was announced. But there is essentially from October 1st of this year, there is essentially a price change for the Dynamics 365 based licenses. So things like D365 sales, field service, customer service, enterprise, that kind of thing. And it roughly works out at about a 10% increase in those prices.
Okay, so something to look out for then. Gents, thank you so much for your time. I know how busy you are with customer work, so really appreciate your time on the call today and your expertise. I'm sure you'll be on Digital Lounge at another time in the near future. So I'll bid you farewell, and yeah, have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Okay, that's all for today. Wherever you're consuming this information, we'd love to know what else you'd like to see on the Digital Lounge. Just leave your suggestions in the comments, whether that's on LinkedIn, YouTube, etc., etc. Just let us know. We're always up for new ideas, new topics to share on the Digital Lounge. But for today, I think we'll call it a day. Thank you for watching.